All right, so to begin the process, we have our brisket here. We've removed it from packaging. We've removed, kind of patted it dry a little bit. Let's go through some of the ingredients that we have. So we have 2 large diced onions. We have a couple of large carrots and a few stalks of celery here, probably 3 or 4, depending on the size brisket. In here we have our aromatics. We have thyme, rosemary, garlic, bay leaves, and peppercorns. Those will go in the braise, make it taste really good. We have some of our beef stock that we have here. This is a reduction of beef demi-glace and beef stock, caramelized vegetables, and that. Red wine, tomato paste, and of course, salt and pepper. We got a little bit of oil to saute everything in. So first thing we're going to do is liberally season our brisket with salt and pepper. Don't be afraid to put a little bit more seasoning on it. We're going to flip this over here. Try and use one hand for your wet, one hand for your dry. So we've got salt. The ideal thing to do is to leave this out after you've seasoned it for 15, 20 minutes. Let it kind of come up to room temperature. Let that salt kind of soak in a little bit. And bring some of that moisture to the top. You'll get a really nice sear on it when we go to do that in our pan. So we've got salt and pepper. All right, so we have here a nice, deep, heavy bottom Rondo saute pan, whatever you'd like. Something that you can braise in and go in the oven like a Dutch oven or something. This is pretty good for us. First thing you want to do is preheat this to a pretty high temperature, and then hit it with a little bit of oil in the bottom, just so it'll help get even caramelization. I'm going to use some tongs here. So we've got our brisket from earlier. First thing we're going to do is lay this. That's the sound you want to hear. All right, so now that you've got some good caramelization going on the opposite side there, you're going to flip it over. These little brown bits here is what you're looking for, like this really nice golden caramelization there. Even a little bit farther than this. Don't be afraid. Leave it in the pan. Don't touch it, right? You want to try and get that nice, even brown caramelization on there. That's going to add to the flavor of the brisket. So now that we've got the other side nice and caramelized, we're going to pull this out, place it on a tray. And in here, you see all these little brown bits and all these little pieces of meat. That's called fond. That is going to make a really, really good sauce. So what we're going to want to do first is turn down our flame to medium, add a touch more oil, and we're going to add about a 1/4 cup, 2 ounces of tomato paste. And we're going to use a wooden spatula or a metal if you have it, and kind of use that to kind of bring up some of those brown bits at the bottom of the pan and toast that tomato paste in that fat. Then, what we're going to do is we're going to add our vegetables. Carrots, onions, celery into the pan. And we're going to caramelize those. Again, scraping up some of that fond off the bottom. Now that we've caramelized our vegetables in here, one thing we're going to do now is we're going to add, this is about 2.5 to 3 cups of red wine. Just enough to kind of coat the bottom. And then you want to use that spoon there and bring up all that nice fond off the bottom there. You can see how it's caramelizing that red wine and reducing it, making it a little thick with that tomato paste. This is actually a great process for cleaning the pan too, so you don't have to spend a bunch of time scrubbing those little bits off the bottom. Adding a little bit of water, a little bit of stock, a little bit of red wine. You can see in the bottom of the pan now, look how clean that is, right? And all that flavor from searing that meat is going to be in your broth. Now, we're going to add our demi-glace. It's a little thick, it's a little chilly, but that's fine. Now, what I like to do is bring this up to a simmer and then gently add the brisket to that. So now that our braising liquids come up to a simmer, we're going to gently lower our brisket into that. The idea is you want this kind of covered 3/4 of the way. If you have any leftover drippings in the pan, go ahead and add those. It just adds to the flavor. And then at this time, we're going to add our aromatics that we talked about, our thyme and rosemary, our bay leaves, a couple of bay leaves in there, cloves of garlic. I like a lot of garlic. This is, I don't know, 6, 7 cloves of garlic, and peppercorns. I like to leave the peppercorns whole. They're easier to strain out later for your sauce. Don't use cracked black pepper or something like that unless you like that flavor, but I got about a tablespoon of black pepper that we're going to add. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring this up to a nice simmer rolling boil. We're going to cover it with some aluminum foil or a lid. I mean, I don't have a lid with me, but aluminum foil, and we're going to pop it in the oven for about 2.5 hours. We're going to be checking it up until then, 2.5 to 3 hours. Make sure it's nice and fork tender, and then we'll show you how to slice it up. Through the magic of television, we have braised our brisket for about 3.5 hours. You can see all of our herbs are in here, bay leaves, carrots, onions, celery, and that sauce is thickened up really nicely. So now we're just going to do some slices of it. Really important part of brisket is you want to make sure you're cutting across the grain. You do not want to cut with the grain. If you cut it with the grain, kind of as you see some of the striations in the protein, if you cut it with the grain, it'll be really stringy and really tough because you get those fibers in there that are really long. What you want to do is make sure that you're cutting across the grain to shorten those up to make it a little bit more delicious and, you know, it's easier to eat. So we're going to go ahead and slice across the grain. And look at that. Still nice and juicy and falling apart. As you can see, this is, I mean, just falling apart here. Nice and tender. With cooked just enough to hold it together when you slice it. This is cooked perfectly. And what we'll do is take some of this braising liquid here that you get. We'll just spoon that over the top. You can serve this with any starch that you'd like, mashed potatoes, rice, noodles. My personal favorite, mashed potatoes, of course, or roasted potatoes. So throughout this process, this is kind of a time-consuming project, right? If you've got guests coming over for the holidays, Rosh Hashanah, this is something that we can do for you. We offer it every day on our takeaway catering menu as well as on our holiday menu. We will have brisket fully cooked available. You'll receive it cooked with some of the jus, and you can reheat it, put it in your own containers, and nobody will know the difference.